This is just an amazing topic, I believe, and I need to let you know before we start that this is a TV-14 topic, if you will. There's some pretty gross pictures we've got for you tonight, so just to know that this is a real issue that we fight here in the United States all the time. People don't realize it. Parasites, well, that's south of the border. That's in third world countries, but this literally is all over. We have it right here in good old USA. So I'm Dr. Giles. I'm a chiropractic physician specializing in health and wellness, health and well-being, and I like to coach other doctors on creating wellness centers and supporting them in their practices. So things that you already know, parasites are the most common life form on Earth. They're literally everywhere. Parasites in humans are more common in the U.S. than usually thought. So, and I think there, as we'll discuss throughout the presentation, a lot of symptoms that we have that we think, well, yeah, diabetes is diabetes. It's not, it couldn't be caused by a parasite. But I find that microparasites, microsites, one-celled organisms, and other organisms can get into the tail of the pancreas and cause a lot of issue there. About 85 to 95% of adults are estimated to have parasites. Are you serious? 85 to 95%. So to be able to find out where they are, what organ systems they're affecting, and what kind of parasite it is. So the signs and symptoms of infestation are not always easily identified. So in removing the parasites from the human host is a difficult thing to do. So there's things you already know, you definitely know that they're difficult to get rid of. So the definition of a parasite, I like this. Intestineless, please help. That's a parasite saying I don't have an intestine to get to. I don't have a place to go home. So parasite is an organism that requires a symbiotic relationship with a host in order to obtain nourishment and survive. But symbiotic kind of means that you live together. Other organisms, including spiders, crustaceans, some plants and animals are considered parasitic in a similar way. The little fish that ride on sharks, they clean their gills, removing parasites, and then the shark protects the little fish from other dangers. That's a symbiotic relationship. Parasites feed on your own cells and food and energy. So they'll draw from cells, they'll eat cells. Parasites can devour tissue and sometimes overload the host, and then we do die. We do have issues that lead to all the way from cysts to cancers. A Cure for All Cancers discusses the idea of cancers being parasitic in nature. So parasites love carbs, sugar, and thrive on food, preservatives, chemicals, dyes, and even gelatin capsules from nutritional supplements. That's one good thing about Inno-Vita is that we don't use gelatin, we use carbohydrates. So that's what makes the Inno-Vita product line completely vegetarian, even to the point of vegan, that it doesn't have any animal product. There are over 1,000 species of parasites that can live inside the body. Tests are available for only 40 to 50 different types. Can you imagine? So many times, as we'll discuss, that we can't find it. There's not a way to determine parasites. So many times, coming back to once the doctor goes and does a parasite check, there's nothing to be seen. And I'll tell you why here in just. Well, let's tell you why right now. When I'm checking for parasites and I think there is an issue, I'll get a complete digestive stool analysis. I used to get it from Great Smokies, but there's other labs that you can get where you'll do a stool analysis over about a 3-day period. But in order to really get it, you have to take a laxative. The laxative will be harsh on the gut and cause parasites to drop off, where many times there's nothing seen in the stool because they're live, they're active, things are good, they're connected to the bowel wall, and nothing is seen. So why parasites are on the rise? World travel and increased immigration is added to the spread of parasites. Parasites increase in climate change, so the higher temperatures and higher sea levels. Also, paleobiologists have found numerous records of fossils where parasites are believed to be more common when temperatures on the Earth increase. So right now my daughter is on a mission down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and of course that's the bayou. The bayou. It's amazing that right next to the river is the bayou. And this bayou is like 10 miles long, hot, humid, and just full of parasite everywhere. So that's a pretty interesting place. Completely different than where I'm sitting right now in Utah. We have, over the summer, oftentimes we'll have 7% humidity, where down in Baton Rouge and in the south, they're up to 70 and 80% humidity. So it also increases increasing use of daycares is another reason. So a lot of people are working outside the home, and so the mothers and fathers aren't taking care of the children, but have them taken to daycare. And of course, fecal-oral transmission, not the kids, playing with each other and touching, sneezing, and spitting and drooling on each other. All of those things are easier passing. Returning armed forces from overseas. Continued popularity of house pets. Increasing popularity with toxic ethnic foods. Use of antibiotics and immunosuppressive drugs. And the sexual revolution, where there's many more than one partner. So there's much more movement, if you will, of all kinds of eggs and parasites in general. So there are 4 pathways which you get a parasite. One is water and food. So food and water are sources of the roundworm, amoeba, giardia, so forth. Raw and undercooked foods, and then treated and untreated water. So you can get giardia and cryptosporidium. This little guy over here is a mosquito, of course, drawing blood, and that's another way is vectors of transmission. So the vector-borne transmission is when a parasite enters the host through the saliva of an insect during a blood meal, or from the feces of an insect that defecates immediately after a blood meal. So I'm not sure if that's what we're seeing here on this mosquito, the red blot here, if that's a fecal area. So mosquitoes, fleas, houseflies, etc. have that. So an example, the mosquito is a carrier of a dog heartworm, filaria or malaria. The flea is a carrier of a dog tapeworm, and the common housefly transmits amoebic cysts. So that could be amoebic cyst as well. I feel that the increase in Lyme disease, this is just what my sense is, because I have so many people showing up with Lyme-type symptoms. Not full-fledged Lyme disease, but on my electrodermal screening, I see almost 100% of people carry the frequency of Lyme, which I think is a parasitic bacteria in nature that I think is being passed by the mosquitoes, and again could be from flies. Spitting, as we spit and talk, we're spewing almost like a sprinkler oftentimes. If you've seen somebody speak in the dark with a light shining up on them, as we speak and pronounce our words, we're literally spewing little droplets, which I think carry the parasite and the Lyme as well. 3, sexual contact. So partners can sexually transmit trichomonas, giardia. I didn't realize that giardia could be, and amoebas as well. So this is a pretty cool picture. Internal parasites, and you can look at. What I love is that Brent, when he's made the PowerPoints, has done a great job at where you can go and reference these pictures and download them if you want. And number 4, nose and skin. So pinworm eggs and Toxoplasmosa gondii can be inhaled from contaminated dust. Hookworms, Schistomonas, and Stragloids can penetrate exposed skin and bare feet. So in the summertime, I just absolutely love to go to the garden. I used to go to the garden, and when I was flood watering the garden, to walk with my bare feet in the mud and have the mud come up between my toes, and just loved that. But then if you think about it, there's got to be stuff. There's cysts and spores and all kinds of things in the garden, and many of us suffer from dry feet or cracked feet. That's a great way of penetrating a parasite. So other infected people with poor hygiene, unsanitary habits, diaper changing, and I've got a little guy living with me now. My little grandson, he's 3 and changing his diaper all the time. So make sure you wash, of course, we'll talk in a minute, wash your hands carefully, heat, soap, poor hygiene in daycare centers, and then contaminated soil. And number 5, U.S. general oh, dude, Brent, that is funny. Number 5 is the U.S. general elections. That's how we can also pass parasites. Anyway, yes, that's a little joke. Thank you. So definitions of parasites. I didn't see that, Brent, when I was going over the PowerPoint. So the definitions of a parasite continue. To remember that the nature of a smart parasite is to live a parallel life within you without making itself known. That's the idea. So think about us on the phone here, listening, or on this conference call. 9 out of 10 of us have parasites in us right now. I don't mean to gross you out, but truly, I think a parasite cleanse once a year would be great. And there's no reason that we couldn't take Paramac and Microsite at the same time. We just want to make sure that our organs of filtration, our liver or kidney, is strong enough. We might want to take some Livergy or Kidney Clear and some Toxex while we do that. But that would be something to think about, doing a liver, gallbladder, colon parasitic cleanse once a year. Okay, so parasites have been found in every organ of the body. That's also interesting. So you want to make sure that when we find where the parasites are through the kinesiology, muscle testing or electrodermal screening, that we would then also focus that organ system with the parasitic. So you might give Livergy with Microsite. Always, that's what I always do. Whenever I'm working on any layer of infection, I want to find out where the infection is residing, support that infection while I'm giving the anti-parasitic as well. So parasites can be divided into 3 groups. Protozoas, these are tiny one-celled organisms. Helminths, or our worm parasites seen with the naked eye. So protozoas basically are Microsite. Helminths and ectoparasites are blood-sucking arthropods such as ticks, fleas, lice, and mosquitoes. So the protozoa would be Microsite, and helminths would be Paramac. So Inno-Vita's size definition, for the sake of removing the infection, that's kind of what we want to look at. Large parasites usually remain in the digestive tract or digestive organs such as the liver, colon, gallbladder, into the pancreas as well, because the pancreas is connected through the common bile duct. So these parasites can go anywhere. Why couldn't they go into the pancreas and create diabetic issues? So large parasites and then the small or microparasites that derive nutrition via cells of the body and are usually more dangerous because they travel to other areas throughout the body, causing damage. So large parasites can be seen here. So here's an example over here on your right, the large roundworm, and that's what it would look like. And then the microsites would be so symptoms in no particular order now. These are just kind of some symptoms. Weakened immune system, frequent diarrhea, abdominal cramps and pain, intestinal gas frequently after eating, indigestion, bloating, or frequent flatulence. Now this could also be these are the same kind of symptoms that you would see with fungus as well. So in my opinion, fungus is a type of parasite. Definitely drawing, sucking, drawing nutrient from, and as we'll see here in a minute, parasites can also create toxins that will drive the host to consume what it needs. What the parasite needs, it releases a chemical that causes the host to go eat that particular food. Fungus will do the same thing in wanting you to drive you to eat more cakes, cookies, candies, pasta, bread. Anorexia, not wanting to eat, heartburn after eating, often constipated and bloating, chronic fatigue and adrenal fatigue. So the intestinal bloat after eating, and this is very common. A lot of us will bloat after we eat, and not just because we've increased the size of our stomach, but because of the maldigestion. We're getting into leaky gut syndrome, maldigestion issues. But the parasite is definitely something that can create that. Fibromyalgia, so there's some symptoms, again, no particular order. Fibromyalgia, food sensitivities, persistent parasitic infections can cause leaky gut syndrome, which cause a variety of other disorders. So when that leaky gut happens, now you've opened the gut in its integrity so that other things can translocate throughout the system. Joint and muscle pain, hives, rashes, eczema, cutaneous ulcers, swelling, sores, lesions, or itchy dermatitis. So this would be some type of a dermatitis, parasitic. And this is a human botfly, interesting. That's pretty sick. But those things are there. Multiple awaking at night. This is a good one. So difficulty in sleeping and waking up, suggesting that parasites are more active in the evening, especially the roundworms are. And those can cause waking up at night because it's moving. It can crawl out and lay eggs and so forth, and that causes us to just be uneased in our sleeping. Toe fungus or athlete's foot, rashes or itching around the genitals in men or women, and endometriosis. So symptoms, again, more brain fog, menstrual irregularities, grinding of the teeth. Grinding of the teeth at night, again, is because of discomfort. So you're asleep, but you're grinding, probably gritting and wincing your face. Excessive amount of bacterial or viral infections, depressed, difficulty in losing weight. Interesting, difficulty in losing weight with a parasite. Developed allergy-like reactions, bloody or mucus in the stool. And the very important symptom, when your client can't figure out why they don't feel well, and neither can their medical doctor. Think of parasite. Common myths about parasites. Coke and Pepsi will kill parasites. Now this says false, but I really think it's true, because I am a recovering Cokeaholic, and I used to always say, well, I got to get rid of my parasites. And in some countries, some of the missionaries, I was a missionary down in Mexico, and drinking the water, of course, was not a good idea. So we drank a lot of Coke, and it made my stomach feel better. So, but that's false. Myths spread and likely to sell more soda. Fresh fruit and veggies will dispel worms is false. So good nutrients are also good for the parasites. Of course, they want all the same things we do. My pets can't have parasites because they never go outside. False. Eggs from insects, bottom of the shoes, and other ways to get into them besides. And then 90% of pets are born with worms in the first place. Interesting. Medical testing will identify those infected. False. Medical testing only catches about 20% of actual cases. So they say, well, I have patients come in all the time. Well, I was checked, or I did that test, and my medical doctor didn't find anything. Did you do it with a laxative? No. Then we need to do it again. Or we can just do kinesiology, treat you for 2 months, and see how we do. And literally, in 25 years, I've ordered maybe 10 complete digestive stool analyses. I just find them much more effective. We can knock it out in a couple of months, and go and not have to pay the $700 or $800 for that test. So I usually don't. I usually just go right after what we find with the electrodermal screening or kinesiology. You can starve a tapeworm. False. Tapeworms have many sources within your body without having to rely on your diet. So tapeworms, of course, are connected into the tissue as well. This bad guy over here, a blood fluke. Not too fun. Strange factoids. This is just some funny, strange little guys. This guy looks pretty funny over here on the right. He almost looks like a rhinoceros, not a rhinoceros, a hippo with a little toupee on. Got to let my mind go there. So strange factoids. There are some good parasites that eat up flakes of dead skin, absorb excess oils, and keep intestines clean. So some of them parasites are good. Technically, they're not parasites, but known as symbiotes. Again, symbiotic means that you live in, well, I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back. Though tapeworms are less common in the U.S., these cestodes can grow up to 30 feet long. Can you imagine? Now that's going to be seen more in the third world countries, but it's still here as well. You can catch tapeworms if your infected dog or cat licks your face. Parasitologists agree that we do not know about all of the human parasites, and that hundreds, if not thousands, of human parasites will be found in the coming years. And luckily we know that we can change them or get rid of them, not by literally killing them, but as we talk here in a minute, with using the Inno-Vita products, we'll be able to stop life cycle in a way that shuts down their ability to create human. Glycolysis, we'll discuss. So reasons medical doctors fail to diagnose parasites. Parasitology, or the study of the human parasites, are usually found within a medical school's tropical disease departments, which explains why many still think that it's limited to foreign or third world countries. The main problem is that many symptoms of parasitic infections resemble other conditions and illnesses. So, for example, roundworm infection is easily misdiagnosed as peptic ulcer. Interesting. A peptic ulcer. And also, again, peptic ulcers, we think of H. pylori. Amoebic colitis, often misdiagnosed as ulcerative colitis. So to me, there's something there. There's something, not necessarily is it always an ulcerative colitis or Crohn's that's going to be an autoimmune issue, but something's there creating that system trying to fight itself, trying to inflame and knock out whatever it is that's there. So that's a great idea, would be amoebic. Many parasitic infections cause other symptoms which are easy to identify. For example, a tapeworm infection may cause diabetes or hypoglycemia. Again, I talked about that. Microparasites getting up into the tail of the pancreas. So pancreas with microsite would be beneficial. Difficult to treat because many antiparasitic drugs will drive parasites to a different part or more remote part of the body, which then becomes even more difficult to treat. So, for example, snowbirds are people who move to better climates to find more comfortable living conditions. There you go. So we've got snowbirds in us. That's a problem. Snowbirdosis. Again, the medical industry has a name for when a client thinks that, oh, this is interesting, that they have for when people think they have a parasitic infection. They call it Morgellons syndrome, or Morgellons syndrome, which is a form of delusional infection, also known as DI. It may certainly be true for some clients, but is often overused as well. So Morgellons was coined by Mary Lido in 2002 and is a founder of the Morgellons Research Foundation. Morgellons syndrome is a delusional disorder where someone is self-diagnosed with a skin condition where they believe they are infected with an inanimate object or organism. This furthers Western medical perceptions that parasites are sometimes only a psychological problem. I've had people tell me, I feel like there's something crawling inside me, something crawling in my skin. And it's there. It's not just a psychotic issue. This is the one that just about drove me nuts when I saw that. There's a parasite right in that person's eye. So things you may not know, parasites expel psychotropic chemicals that cause their host to crave the very things the parasite desires. So the client craves the sweets, the sugars, may have a sugar craving parasite. So that's, again, fungus will do that. The single-celled protozoa that cause malaria are currently considered the deadliest parasite with over 80,000 varieties. They've killed more people than all the wars, famines, and natural disasters combined. Wow, that's amazing. Approximately 209 million people around the world are infected with pinworm. More than 30% of the world's children are infected. So pinworms are very common, seen around the anus, around the anal opening. Kids with itchy bottoms or scratching their bottoms, checking their seat, pulling their pant out. That can be checked in the nighttime while the kids are asleep. You have to just get a flash and you'll see it around the anal opening. It's estimated that at least 70 people, mostly children, are blinded by roundworms each year, and I think this is what this here is in the picture is a roundworm. Tapeworms can survive up to 25 years in their human host. That's just amazing. Protozoas that make up an estimated 90% of all parasitic infections in the U.S. So protozoans, those are one-celled organisms. That would be more microsite. But don't let the percentages dictate how you treat. Don't think, well, so I should get 9 out of 10 bottles should be microsite. Not necessarily. Always ask what the patient is needed. This person over here on the right is suffering from elephantitis, part of backing up in the lymphatics by the parasite. So things they may not want to know. Many larger parasites can break apart and the segments will grow into entirely new worms. So think about that. If you cut a regular worm, a regular dirt worm, it can grow another head on the other end, and now you've got 2 worms. In 2013, people were buying tapeworms online. Can you imagine this? And then swallowing them in order to lose weight. Someone forgot to mention that tapeworms steal all the good nutrition, minerals, and vitamins, leaving the less remnants, causing the host malnutrition and anemia. I can't even imagine that. Can't even imagine the thought. But I guess if you had a weight issue and you were to your last straw. The earliest known record of human parasites was a lung fluke found in a fossilized feces in northern Chile dating back to 5,900 BC. That's interesting. The pinworm female migrates at night onto the perineum where she will lay up to 15,000 eggs. That's just sick. So elephantiasis is caused by a roundworm. So this is what this person here has. The Loa parasite worm lives in the human eye. And maybe that was a little lower than with what we were seeing previously. The human host can feel it moving around and see it when it becomes large enough. Unfreaking believable. I would go nuts. What would you do? I mean, I can't even imagine that concept. But just get to your doctor and have them lance it and take it out. Some studies, I hope I'm not making you guys sick here and having the willies, because I just got them. Some studies in treating hay fever symptoms included volunteers drinking large quantities of hookworm eggs. The hookworms dampened the immune system, which in turn lessened the effects of hay fever. The theory was that the hookworms then passed out harmlessly. Well, don't know if that was the case or not, but I don't know that I would be doing a study that way. So common prevention, obvious dietary adjustments, try to eat more fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, eat meat sparingly, your oils, try to stay away from cakes, cookies, candies, pasta, bread. Always wash your hands before eating, and just keep your hands washed if you can, as much as you can. Clean up after playing with pets. Cook food properly. Again, cook food properly, what does that mean? Does that mean we have to boil it till it's gone mush and we've lost all of our vitamins? Basically, stir fry is the best way to go with your vegetables, or steam them. Avoid unsanitary eating establishments, conditions. Be aware of your water condition. Drink bottled or boiled water when traveling. Insist on clean practices at daycare centers. Clean children's hands after leaving the daycare. Increase bitter foods. So alkaline environments will counter parasites which thrive in acidic digestive systems. So when you have an acidic medium, when you eat too much of the sugar foods or too much meat protein, that will create an acidic environment, and therefore now you've got a problem. So lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, bitter herbs, these again, we're saying, well, those are acidic, but they do turn into an alkaline ash. Probiotics boost immune systems to fight the parasites. Basically, if you have a good grass seed and a good grass coat on your yard, there's no place for weeds to grow. That's the idea of probiotics. So now the commonly used formulas here. Paramac is used for treating macro and large parasites, designed to remove gastrointestinal parasites and their toxic byproducts. Many other drugs used to kill parasites are also harmful to the host. Therefore, Inno-Vita's philosophy for treating parasites is not to kill the parasite, but to make the terrain inhospitable to the parasite. If you change the bioterrain, you can dispel parasites naturally. So the other goal is to disrupt their own self-fertilization process by inhibiting their own glycolytic pathways. That's what Paramac does. So gastrointestinal parasites is large parasites. Microsite, again, Microsite was developed to treat microscopic parasites which do not have larval states. So we'll discuss the larval state and why we treat what we do in a minute. Single-celled organisms such as amoebas and other blood-borne parasites can be treated with Microsite. So these are the parasites that may enter into any organ and cause damage and weakness. It's a little bit more difficult for the larger parasites to move from organ to organ, but the micros go in the blood, so they can filter out in the liver, the kidney, everywhere. So my program for treating large parasites includes 4 cycles. So you take the Paramac, 10 days on and 5 days off, depending on the body size. So this process may take up to 3 Paramac a day. Again, you want to ask them how much you should do before going to bed. It may be appropriate to take throughout the day instead. Sensitive patients respond better to taking Paramac throughout the day rather than all 3 at night. And that's kind of what I do now. One at breakfast, one at dinner, one at bedtime. A regular program will last about 2 months following the 10-day, 5-day rest. So that's 15 days is one cycle, for a total of 2 bottles of Paramac. The resting 5 days allows the larvae to hatch, rendering them exposed to the assault of this herbal formula. And I find that the larval state supplement is not able to kill the parasite. So that larval state is protected. It's in a biofilm. It's designed so that the parents, the adults, can live. Once they start to die, there's a chemical release that allows the larva to hatch, and then the next life cycle takes on. So we kill the adult dies off, the larva hatch, we let that 5-day hatching period and then we hit it again. So the minimum of 4 cycles. Since there's no larval state with the microparasites, there's no need for a resting period to allow for the larval hatching. So this supplement is used for 40 days straight. Again, Microsite. So you've heard of Herxheimer's, the Dieoff. So I didn't really realize that Herxheimer was a guy that talked about this. Gerish Herxheimer reaction, when the body is overwhelmed by toxins released during the death of harmful microorganisms or toxins, toxic detoxification, heavy metals, and so forth. Some discomfort is associated with parasites becoming restless or moving around the body. So as they're moving or running from the effect, or they're dying off or whatever, we want to diminish that. So symptoms are also often similar to flu-like conditions like headaches, muscle aches, weakness, skin. You all know those Herxheimer's reaction symptoms. But we can diminish that through using Toxex, which we'll discuss here. So very important to stick with the protocol for an effective cleansing. You got to stick with it. So don't worry, but there's things we can diminish. Giving them Livergy, Kidney Clear, Toxex. Probably another one would be Integracell to help get rid of the byproduct of the dying off. Don't forget the other infection fighters. Parasites. The parasites will support other kinds of infections. So there's, for example, if the parasites are weakened, have weakened the colon, then fungus can come in. So you might want to consider using Fungex with it as well. Again, arm testing, kinesiology, muscle testing must be done if you're going to be thorough and find out which, instead of guessing, you want to find out if they can handle several of these at once, possibly. Maybe they handle several. Maybe they have Paramac and Microsite together with Fungex and possibly bring in Meta-X. So Meta-X is a metal, it's a heavy metal detoxifier that fungus will wrap around the metal to protect the host from the effect of the metal. So sometimes as you get rid of the fungus, you need to also support and get rid of Meta-X. So you could maybe take all 4 of those at once, less amounts of all 4. But gosh, how are you going to determine how to do that? Kinesiology. Other ones then, Toxex. This helps to diminish, this is not just to diminish the parasite die-off, but any die-off through a chelating process. It's like bringing small particles together to become larger particles to get caught in the kidney, liver, and excreted. Coltrax supports the colon, and Digesta is also very important with Paramac and with Microsite because it helps to digest the walls of the parasite. The other thing you can think about is diatomaceous earth. Some other companies carry diatomaceous earth. You can also buy it in bulk. Have your patient just load it up in bulk. Diatomaceous earth is crystallized plant particle that acts as like mini glass shards. Doesn't affect the walls of the colon, but it can cut through and be abrasive to the parasites. So that's something else you can think about. And then, of course, the probiotics found in Leptera, Vivaprofen, and Floricin. The Vivaprofen I like when we have inflammation in the gut. This helps to shut down the inflammation and reseed the good bacteria. Floricin is just a good amount of good bacteria. Leptera also carries digestive enzymes and good bacteria. You bet. So elephantiasis is just a backup of lymph. It's literally, they've become bayou of the bayou. So just think about that picture we saw. There's going to be blockages in the lymphatics. Those lymphatics could be blocked with parasitic eggs, parasites themselves. To where it's so much inflammatory state that the lymphatics are not flowing anymore, and it's just swells. So you'd want to think about Lympha-X. That's one of the new supplements that came out this last year, or just in June. Lympha-X helps to digest things in the lymphatics, helps to increase lymphatic flow. Digesta on an empty stomach is also another way to digest what's in the blood and subsequently in the lymphatics. Lymphatic drainage techniques, massage techniques, for sure, working from the trunk working in the abdomen in a clockwise soft massage working yourself down into the thighs, but ultimately the very soft, it's a very light distribution of massage, and then ultimately working down towards the feet. But each stroke comes up into the abdomen and dumps into the abdomen. But it's not a muscle, it's not a deep massage, it's very light. The LymphStar Pro that we use here in the office is a light that creates negative ion. It creates negative, they actually are, the patient is electrified. They're not being electrocuted, but if you touch them with your pointer finger, just with a little soft touch, you can feel an electrical zap. But this is breaking the negative and positive bonds between the undigested proteins in the lymphatics. So that you can literally break up stuff out of that, out of the blockages. Kinesiologically, you can ask, where is the blockage, and focus the highest priority blockages. But I would really suggest going after the layers of infection. It's not always going to be parasite, but checking infections, LymphaX, Digesta, ToxX, IntegraCell. IntegraCell, of course, is getting rid of all of the free radicals that are in there. Swimming would be awesome for them because that's giving them fluid around their body, compressing them in a soft way that also would help pump. Bringing their legs up, laying them on their back, bringing their legs up and resting them on a couch or chair, and even as they're able to, ride a bike upside down, that bike movement with their feet like they're pedaling their bike, because that's all contracting the muscles and getting that lymphatic to pump. I think that would be best. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything that can be in the blood, anything that can be in the lymphatics can create cellulitis. So cellulitis is basically dirtiness of the tissues. Usually it's not, well, usually it's going to be in the lower extremities or the furthest extremities, hands, feet. It can be anywhere though. But anything that's going to get stuck in those channels, whether it's the lymphatic or the cell or the blood supply, clot, but anything that's going to back that up, and microsites. Think about that. If you had a good case, not even necessarily one that we're going to see heavily on microscopy. However, dark field microscopy, which isn't really done much, you can pick up all kinds of blood parasites. But what's interesting is I've seen when you take a digestive enzyme, we took at a seminar once, they took this person's blood and looked at all the clumping and all the parasites and different things that were in the blood, gave him a digestive enzyme, and then took his blood in a half hour, and it was cleared. The clumping was gone, the parasitics had digested away. It was truly amazing. So doing a digest on an empty stomach could really be beneficial, and if you had cellulitis, maybe 3 times a day, could be just tremendous. And you think about digestive enzymes, they're designed to digest protein, carbohydrate, fat, which are the walls of parasites, which are the walls of meat protein, the walls of plants. So when we have a good functioning pancreas, our exocrine pancreas is making that protease, lipase, amylase. We have a good count of acid in our stomachs. That's going to break the meat down that we eat. It's going to break the cells of the plants that we eat, and it would also break down the walls of parasites, which shouldn't be there. The problem is we diminish our digestion by our age. So if we're 50 years old, which I'm now 52, half of my ability to digest has been diminished. So to get the digestive enzymes by taking Digesta and by eating plants and fruits and vegetables with their own intrinsic digestive enzyme, that's going to help my overall digestive process strengthen and keep parasites at a minimum.